also record. Nice.
Okay,
Ari,
perfect.
is it okay if we record? And Natasha, is it okay if we record?
Yes.
Okay,
Nice.
cool.
Um, all right, the trash truck is swinging by around. Since there's
Okay.
just the two of us, or sorry, the four of us, um, Carmen, I teach a asynchronous class, and so it's an option to show up live. But most people like it doesn't work with their schedules, and so we just record
Mhm.
it and we'll host it for the class later on. But since it is just the four of us, Ari and Natasha, do you want to just sort of introduce yourselves and like sort of what your relationship is
Yeah.
to photography, so that Carmen knows who they're talking to?
Okay. Um, Hi, I'm Natasha.
Hello.
I intend on getting the studio art degree or major at Western. I'm also getting a minor in Spanish, but I have been taking pictures like my whole life, and I really, really enjoy photography. I think it's very cathartic for me, and I only hope to improve.
Awesome. Genial.
I'm Ari. Sorry. I'm Ari. I'm a senior in the psychology department. I'm mostly just taking this class because I need the credits and I love photography. Um, when I was like 16, I've got a brother who's 18 years older than me, and I just found his old film camera and started playing
Oh,
around with
cool.
it. And he moved to Germany when I was 10. So he found out I was doing that and started teaching me how from, Skype. And then he bought me my own camera. And now that's our
Oh,
main way of connecting across continents. So, yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah, that's
That's so great
incredible.
from both of you. That's great. I love it.
I'm going to turn it over to Carmen, but I first met Carmen there in the photography program at Western. Carmen is an alum, and you were just doing like really incredible work. Like I was like really impressed with your work, but also like we were doing like collaborative projects that were like
Yes.
just like a little bit outside of everyone's like comfort zone, and you were like, yeah, let's
Yes.
do it. And I
Yes.
remember that like, yeah, I was like, whoa, Carmen's the shit. um,
Feelings mutual. Feelings very mutual for
nice.
sure.
But anyways, I'm super excited. It's nuts that you're like splitting time between New York and Barcelona, and like I basically want to catch up and see what your work is up to after going through
I
your website.
know.
Also,
Oh,
so yeah, can I just turn it over to you, Carmen?
yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna
Um,
do a screen share.
Perfect. And then I'll also say because my internet is so bad, if I dip out, don't stop. I'll be back as soon as possible.
I won't stop.
Cool.
Okay. All right. I'll keep.
Awesome.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dana. And please let me know if you don't hear me, if just wave or whatever, just like chime in. But I'm gonna share my screen. Doot. Okay. Can you guys see what something different? Okay. Cool. All right. So I wanted to start off basically with my background, not in speaking of photography, but speaking of myself as a person, because just even between like our group of like four here, we all have such different like entrance points to photography or the visual world that like I think that is really special. And so my background is that my mom is from Sevilla, Andalusia, so Spain, a lot of like flamenco there. And my dad is from Shiraz, Iran, which is well known for its poetry and everything. And growing up in the suburbs of Seattle, like it was being first generation, at home, there were a lot of visual signifiers. So it's like what I was surrounded with, color wise, patterns, foods, smells, like all my senses were, um, there was just a lot of sort of like boldness there. And then, you know, growing up in like white suburbia, I was, doing what any one of us does and just like photographing my friends and all that. So I start off here because it's kind of what's always playing in the background of my work and of as myself as a person. So like even if I wasn't doing photography, like if you could see my apartment right now, it's just very colorful and like these are things that like bring me back to myself, which is kind of just like the grounding space from which I operate from as a creative. So there's that general sort of umbrella of who I am as a person. And then it was very fun when Dana, you reached out to me. I thought it would be cool to kind of present my work through like the main ways that I remember starting to develop my work while I was at Western, and kind of like categorizing it and seeing like what things I still do now that like come out in my personal work and my professional work. So obviously like your friends, the people you know, it doesn't even have to be people, like it could be objects, spaces you go to on your own. I think like that is always like, you know, such a special way to see how you feel and how you interact with the world visually. So a lot of times like growing up, or not growing up, going to Western, starting to really develop my voice as a photographer and artist was just photographing my friends. But I always kind of, when I did approach photographing my friends, it was always like, I had a vision, even if it was just like, okay, you're in the front seat of my car, like the way the light is hitting you, I want you to look at me this way. You may feel uncomfortable, but I need you to understand like this is like a moment that I'm feeling and I need you to like fall into it with me. So a lot of times, you know, light and color is incredibly important. I know that this is a digital photography class. And when I tell you that people often ask me like, is this film? Like, no, color is incredibly, incredibly important. It's just, I see people shoot film and it doesn't transmit sometimes just because of the color choices. So keep that in mind as you're like, this is, you know, color is very important. So I definitely, light and color were super important to me, and also just like compositionally, creating a sense of intimacy and like where I saw my friends and their spaces. This was also shot in the, I forget what the name of the building, the Fine Arts building, but also interacting with other artists was super inspirational. And so this is some new work. So as I go through all of this, like I'm kind of like interspersing old work with new work to kind of see how it's translated and evolved. So these are some editorial portraits I took of a couple of friends of mine who have a film company, which they're fabulous, amazing. I will send you the link. They're so inspiring with their storytelling. And they wanted something that was just kind of like surrealist, a little colorful. But yeah, just a simple, like even like a gel in front of the camera, that can already take it to another place. This is another continuation, something a little more traditional, right, in portraiture or whatever, but there's still a sense of intimacy, and that is very important to me. And always considering the space, like where my people are, where they are, how they're interacting, who they are and what I see them as, bounces off of the space they're in, and how that comes together to like really, in my mind, the way I see it, it sounds corny, but just elevate them to like kind of like a spiritual space, or like a place where I'm like, no, you need to understand that like I see you this way and I think you're just a very amazing person. And then on a more editorial side, and when I say editorial, it could mean everything from like my own personal like projects with fashion, or portraits that get commissioned by like artists or magazines or art directors. But again, color's always been super important. So environment, color, intimacy, friendship, making people feel comfortable. These are some of like the ways in which, as someone who photographs people, mainly people, again, going back to like my first slide, like these are things that culturally at home, we were, you know, Spanish Iranian people, even though completely different cultures, religions, whatever, like both my parents had made sure to like fuse like this is how you make people feel. This is how color makes people feel. This is how hospitality makes people feel, and how that helps me interact with people. And speaking of like psychology too, like that is like such a major interesting thing too, with like how you connect with people and how you create imagery. So that's kind of like one of the first major like umbrella points. And then my world kind of like exploded a little bit when I started to learn about other artists. John Baldessari is one of them. Baldessari is definitely one of them. This is where I started to really play around with things that are like super fine-tuned with myself now. And that is digital graphic design, graphic elements, geometry. Again, like, what are these different elements that I can use to kind of take the person I'm photographing, or take the environment or object that I'm photographing, and take it to like another level. Whether I always am thinking of surrealism and magic realism, just because I think like you can find that magic in everyday environment. So this on the left is a portrait I took of my friend. A portrait is a funny word for it, but it's just, you know, my friend putting on a shirt, but I knew that I wanted his belly button exposed because I wanted to kind of play on the umbilical cord, and but also like a trail. And they're just pink dots, but there's something sweet about that. And so this is also something I did a lot. This was a lot of my work, playing with lines and triangles. This is where I really started to play with digital photography. Just simple lines and juxtaposing different spaces, or creating these connections with the people I was taking pictures of, maybe to a photo I took like years ago, and how that creates like a fresh new image. Obviously, there was a time when triangles were very trendy. It was Tumblr, it was 2007, the wind was blowing, like it was like a time, a time. But this is kind of a fun example. It's, you know, my style has evolved from this, but the photo, the photo underneath was like photo I took in Sevilla when I was visiting family, and like by all means, like it could be considered something more like photojournalistic. And at the time, I was also studying photojournalism, and so I loved like that combination of photojournalism with something that maybe isn't supposed to be there, fine art photojournalism. I was very much about that interaction, that space. Also, if I'm going too fast, or if you have any questions, like please feel free. You know, just playing around with photos I took of friends at parties, but making them, you know, just experimenting for myself. These are all practices, nothing formal. They would go up on my blog, my Tumblr, and then I would just kind of move forward. And I was also always interested in graphic design. But this is kind of interesting because I started doing like writing with like the brush tool in Photoshop. And I'm, you know, graffiti is something that I also really love. And so I had a tag back in high school, but this was kind of like, and I also was really into spoken word and poetry, and my dad being from this place that's known for poetry, like all these elements just kind of coming in and introducing themselves in new ways. Whether it's even just like composition, like just the intervention of everything, whether it's a fashion story, a portrait, like I am very interested in like what those new spaces are like. And so, you know, just kind of flipping through here, but this is also another entrance point for me. And it was John Stezaker and Urs Fischer. Urs Fischer is shown here. They're called problem paintings, I think, where he overlapped you know, sliced, it could be like a sliced pepper or cigarettes or chains, and put them directly over people's portraits. And this image specifically is what inspired this editorial I did, like one of my first editorials I did with a stylist like a long time ago, called One Man's Trash, where I took things I found in the trash, you'd find the trash, and kind of made them into this mixed media element. And specifically with this image on the left, I was also thinking of Josephine Baker, the first Black performer in France, and how important she had like this banana skirt that she was iconically wearing. And I wanted to kind of pay tribute to that as well. And so these are things like culturally, again, going back to like my own experience with different cultures and existing within different environments, that comes out like that. And so I started playing with putting objects on photographs, cutting up, really getting physical. Like these are digital images, but I printed it, cut them up, then rephotographed them. And so there's a lot that you can do with the digital photography to kind of get a non-digital feeling result. Also, you know, wanting to think about the objects I'm placing on the portraits I take. For the Spanish speaker in the house, salud means health. And this is a portrait I took of my friend on her birthday, and she wasn't really feeling herself throughout the year. And I was like, well, why don't we try taking a nude portrait of yourself and let's try to really embrace how beautiful I think you are. You're up for it, obviously. And so I was thinking of the cherubs you see like on Renaissance painting ceilings, and then adding in this bracelet. I was just like, you are abundant, you are healthy, you are, what you have is good, you know? Excuse me, sorry. The heat here in Spain is very, very dry and hot, but yeah, so a lot of these elements also help me connect with my subject matter. So whether it's like bringing in their own handwriting or bringing in the blueprint of the place where we are shooting, like these are all new sort of experiences with the portrait and can kind of empower the person. Like placing, you know, you may think, okay, this is just a blueprint on the portrait of a person, but I specifically wanted to place the word legend next to her face. I want to empower her and make her feel like that words matter, and that the words of this woman on the right, her name is Lynn Slater, and she, at the time when I took this photo of her, she was 76, and she was kind of, and now she's a huge advocate for like ageism and fashion and speaking up about the age gap and everything. And so I was like, you should definitely be surrounded by your own words. I think that's important. And then these are just like some examples of more personal work I did when I went to Iran, more of like scrapbook, diary, that sort of thing. But they're all practices. So even if something doesn't go out officially, like just give yourself a space where you can practice and explore these different things that interest you, whether you get them right, quote unquote, or not. And this is also fun too, because this was a portrait of an artist in New York, and I told her to draw whatever she felt represented her, and we'll use it as a framing around you. So like, I want it to be a conversation, a collaboration. I want you to feel like you are part of the image making of yourself. Excuse me, sorry. I am talking.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Take your time. Take your time.
I'm taking my time. Okay. It's also, I have the fan going right at me because it's hot, but it's also like blowing. It's fine. It's fine. Anyways, and so the first example I had was Urs Fischer with a banana on the portrait. And so I started realizing that, like, especially when I moved to New York, because there was like trash everywhere, like I really was observant of my surroundings. And so I ended up collecting a lot of things, collecting lotto tickets, things physically. And again, that was a really, really fun way to take something digitally, print it out, and then interact with it physically. Like that was so important to me, because a lot of times digital photography, like you're like this, and especially now, like Zoom classes, everything, your brain just like, there's only so much you can really think with that. So these images are actually from an iPhone, and they were able to blow up to like an 11 by 14. And it was very, very fun to interact with them. I wanted to give two different meanings to the idea of shattered glass and resilience, and the idea of like diamonds and just kind of showing self-resilience through shattered glass. And it also continued in my own personal like cultural work. So made some personal work while I was out in Sevilla. Sardines are they're very well-known thing that other people eat there, and the azulejos too. So again, kind of, I mean, it may not make sense to most people, and that's okay. But for me, it's important to make the image, and it's kind of, I want it to kind of strike a chord, or just even if it makes people wonder what's going on, like that's perfectly okay with me. Like that's great. And then yeah, using my own hair, like a lot of it, you brush through it, like there's so much material there. So and then just like simple, you know, collage, printing and collaging. And then here's where I started to like just make simple digital compositions. And so as I'm explaining all of this, like these are things that were all made for like personal work that people later on, like clients later on, have like reached out to me and been like, hey, that thing you did with the mirrors on the thing, like I would love for you to do that with me. And so one of the first big jobs I got was working with musician Esperanza Spalding. and we did her album covers, and she essentially just told me like, it's going to be called 12 Little Spells. There's going to be these 12 individual spells for different body parts, and I want you to collage, like we're going to create digital portraits and then collage them. So that is what we did here, excuse me. So we represented every different body part through photographing it, but then she wanted to give it some texture and collaging with it. Sometimes it was a matter of just combining different images. So what's really important to my work too is that whatever I'm photographing, whether it's with the client in mind or not, I have a huge archive and image bank that I am constantly diving into and bringing out. So, you know, those John Baldessari and that blue dot, like these are how it kind of comes out sometimes in these like subtle ways. So these 12 images, they represent the 12 tracks on the album, different body parts. And the really cool part was to see it at the end as in the actual vinyl. So this is how it came out. And so it was cool, like the images ended up being used as a zine, part of the actual album. And we layered all the images. They had a graphic designer layer all the images we made and make this album artwork. So this is like a perfect example of something that has gotten me like commercial level work. It is like the dream of like things I want to continue doing. And so, yeah, I thought that was a really special thing to share as well. And then I think from here, I just have there's a couple things I did want to share that are physical. I don't know if that's possible at all. And I don't know how we're doing on time.
We have like maybe 15 more minutes of your presentation, if that works for you, and then we can switch over to questions. But yeah, we can show physical things. You can stop sharing your screen and then,
Okay. I might reshare, but I want to take a screen break. I think that's a good
nice.
So a lot of the things that when COVID happened and I had just moved to Spain, so I've been in Barcelona for maybe like a year and a half. And you know, when I say split my time between New York and Barcelona, is that I will go there to New York to work and see friends and stuff, and then come back here just because cost of living, it makes more sense here for me. But it was a challenge at first because I wasn't able to find work. And so I ended up doing this personal project called the Calendar Zine, which is essentially a decolonized calendar. It's part calendar, part zine. It's like this. So I think this is 2021 and 2022's copies. And they start off as like these spiral bound zines. And they have, the beginning has a kind of like a letter of reflection of the year for me. So it's like something I write out in English and in non-gendered Spanish, which is very hard because everything has a gender. A bottle has a gender. And it's like, I don't understand why. And so it starts off like this, right? And then you flip it and you are at the month. And so this has been a really great personal project. One, because it just gives me a space to continue making personal work or use images, like reflect back on my archive and bring things out. But also I sold these and it helped me survive. And I was very surprised to know that, like, you know, people would be willing to pay for my art, and that like it was a thing I genuinely enjoyed. So like you've seen some of these images digitally, but it's kind of cool to play with them in print. This is some new work I made, portraits of friends. But yeah, so I spend time with each month, kind of like thinking of like meditating on each month and what we need after the years we've had or the month we had, and what I think will help the person. And then there's a QR code that you scan and it has a song that I dedicated to go with the image and everything. And so, yeah, and I'm writing, there's some writing in there. So kind of, this is like the most up-to-date example of like all the things I'm interested in. It's like print, design, bringing in these images. And I made it so that people could tear the images later on and have like these A4 sized images to hang on their walls. So like you can keep the aspiration going. So this was, I wanted to share this because it was a huge part of my survival during COVID times, which we're still very much in, but just really at the height of that with my personal work and trying to keep it going with photography, not giving up. So the other cool thing with some of the images is that professionally, I highly recommend, there's this website called moo.com. I believe it's in the US and EU, but this was also a really fun way to print your images, and I make these promo pieces. So every meeting that I'm going to, every coffee I grab with a person, just any interaction with a professional, I always leave them behind with this little promo pack. And I wanted it to be kind of like a collector's pack of like Pokemon cards, but my work. No one maybe understands that, but I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how it is. But what's special about this too is like on the back of each one of these images is a piece of writing that just like a little blurb. So for example, this one I had explained earlier, and I said, thinking of Josephine Baker, thinking of the way we stride. And so I'm always kind of taking a nod towards like that sort of empowering through the magic realist approach. And people have really responded really well to this. I've gotten jobs from this. Like people have been like, I remember when you dropped these off, and I love, oh, it's so small. Like people like it when it's like something they could just put up on their desk, and then I give them enough so that like they can share with their friends, and that way you're just kind of, you know, all over. So, and it's been fun because zine making, all this stuff is just tangible. It takes you away, even if it's all digital, but it gives you a chance to work with your hands. And another iteration of that too has been, yes, these are also little mini zines that me and my friend, who was the first person I had as a stylist, because otherwise before that I was like buying clothes from JCPenney, then returning them and styling people in them. But before I moved to New York and when I was getting ready to go out there, same thing, we would have these meetings, and these are just easy, like you could just Xerox and print out, and it was just like a mini portfolio of our work. And so it would have like a little business card in there, and then it would just, there'd be 2 different copies, and then it would just like show the work that we had done together. Obviously this is like many years old, but it was a cool way. And on the back it was just, you know, it would have his information and my information. So people really respond well to these things, like I think, and even as like gifts and things like that, like people, it's a good way for me to be able to express that part of myself that really enjoys print, but also like make it work for getting jobs and like putting yourself out there and like presenting exactly the way you want your work to be perceived. Like that is like a super important thing.
Carmen, I have a quick question,
Yeah.
technical question. How are
Yes.
those little zines bound?
These guys?
Yeah, is it just like a saddle stitch, like with a
Staple.
stapler or a staple?
Staple.
Nice.
Yeah, with a staple. I definitely was in a rush for these, and so I paid for someone to staple them, but you can absolutely YouTube and find a way to do this yourself. So you could just kind of, it's just all about lining out your photos so that you get the fold right. But yeah, and they've stood the test of time. But yeah, people really respond well to it. And lastly, this was a really fun project that me and my stylist, again, because we moved to New York together, but he's a very close friend of mine. We called it Birds of a Feather because when we left the West Coast, when we left Washington, someone told us like birds of a feather flock together. And that was kind of our mantra and like how we connected with people and our way of forming community and home outside of home. And so it was a compilation. We took Maya Angelou's poem, Human Family, and we used it as a point of departure to kind of take images, kind of scrapbook a little bit. All these are things that just are exercises. They're ways of us to kind of just, it's nice to reflect and dive back into your archives and bring them back out of the dark. And because that's the other thing about digital is like, it's out of sight, out of mind a lot of times, you know what I mean? So it's like, you have to tend to them or they'll be waiting for you, you know what I mean? So these are all images that we took that first image, actually, oh, you can see, I loved the color combination between these two strangers. And so it was just all handwritten and then scanned like our Metro cards and everything like that. And then towards the end, so this is an image my mother took when she first came to the States. And then I combined it with an image I took out in Crown Heights. And it was just, I don't know, it was very special. And then we kind of showed ourselves and we made these little like fake tourist t-shirts where we like also took some of the things that I had scanned and placed them onto print. So it was a really fun time. And I had made sweatshirts with this image on them and people really respond to that. So it's just been a fun way to play with different formats, see what people are responding to. And that you never know when someone says, hey, like, I really like what you're doing here, even if it's a personal project, like, don't be afraid to put that out there and try different iterations of things, you know? And so, yeah, the last bit, I mean, what I could also show, Dana, also, I don't know how much of like, I have some work that, some like new sets of images that I've made. They're personal projects, but they're editorial, like I submitted to Photo Vogue. We'll see if it gets in.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see it.
Yes. Okay. All right. So this is from, let me share my screen. Here we go. Can y'all see that? Okay, cool. So one of the cool things about living in Spain is that I am in a whole new environment and I'm responding to my environment in a way that I haven't before with my own work. And a lot of that comes to just, I think there's like a psychology of like being in a different space and different type of light and everything. And so this series of images is called Rosanna in the Highest. And it was made with a friend of mine, a stylist out here, who we both shared a real frustration with the fashion industry in terms of fat phobia and really not having a lot of bodily representation, but also feeling like not just in front of the camera, but off camera too. There wasn't a lot of that on set. And so we both relate to that, being bigger girls here in Spain, where a lot of times like we couldn't even like find our size in clothing, that we had to do so much online shopping. So we decided to create this story where we work with a plus size model who we also really connected with and became friends with. And we kind of did a play on like Hosanna in the Highest. I'm not really religious, but kind of this sort of like exaltation, this like cry of joy, this like empowering thing. And we did like an editorial. So essentially it's like kind of 5 to 6 different images with different looks. And so this is what we had submitted. And so kind of, again, playing with those interventions and like juxtaposing, like the image on the right was shot in Sevilla years ago, but it made perfect sense to me. Like it completed the image on the left. And then also playing with kind of like a sense of performance, letting the model kind of play and like get weird. I think like that kind of energy is always encouraged, because I don't want the person to just sit and pose. Like I want them to interact and move their body and like get weird as well. And same thing with this image. This is where color is super important, because the image on the left, a lot of people have asked if it's film, but it's simply just the color, the tonality. It's so like one of my favorite tools in Photoshop is the selective color layer. Give me that and I will make any image look like Stanley Kubrick. Like, I don't even know. Like I will make it, like it's just such a, like, I love it so much. And again, this is where like that image bank that I constantly have and building, I bring in for things like this. And it's so exciting because it kind of just gives it new life. And so on the right is the last image, and on the left is, I guess it kind of seamlessly goes into some of artist portraits I've been doing of friends here as well. So kind of goes back to like that first image of my friend Drew in the car, you know, it's like, it's the light, it's him, it's intimate. The composition is cared for, the light is cared for, and getting the person to feel comfortable and share something about them. So this is my friend, he's an artist. But I kind of want to get portraits of him too and how I had experienced his friendship. So that's kind of some of like my more recent work, personal work that I've done. And then the very last thing that I think would be cool to share is some of the stuff I've done with motion, like video and photo, if that works. Which is
Yeah, yes, please.
yes. Okay. All right. Let's see. Yeah, slideshow. Okay. Solo background. Image on the right was taken on a gig I did for Milan Paris Fashion Week. It was men's fashion week. And so I was like photojournalism, portraits, whatever, going out there. But the video on the left is from when I was in Iran last time in 2018. And so I called it video is not rated. Log in to watch. Excuse me. Sorry. Did not. Hold on a sec. That is not what was supposed to happen. Hold on. Let me see if I have it. Video work. Sorry, guys. I thought that was supposed to go. Hold on. Ooh, hold on. Let me see.
There's nothing more humanizing than watching somebody struggle.
And having to log into here and like not remember the password. Oh my God, why?
I think Vimeo is the worst.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Let me see.
I mean, for passwords.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh man, I totally. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I have it on my. Wow, this is. I might just have to do. I wonder if I have it on my other. Oh, dang. Okay, hold on. Then I'm gonna go to the other one, see if that works. Let's see. Well, this one's a GIF. I managed to make this one a GIF. But this was from an editorial that I had done for an artist out in Seattle, actually named Archie, who is amazing. And when they came to New York, we did kind of like an ode to New York, but also an ode to like themselves being in flow with the movement of their life. So this was kind of, we wanted to compose the city with them, portraits of them. And so that was a really fun kind of motion iteration of what I was already experimenting with in photography. And then let's see if this one works, please. This is silly. This is just so silly. I'm so sorry. Okay. Let me I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and I'm gonna find my password if you want. If you have any questions in the meantime, or let me see. Sorry about that. That was working earlier. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm so sorry. But anyways, it was just basically a way of composing, taking videos from other places and times and keeping the still image. I can also send you the links as a follow-up. Yeah, I'll send everything as a follow-up so that you can take your time with it. But yeah, that's kind of, I feel like the fullest, most up-to-date explanation of where I'm at as an artist, visually, where my interests lie and where they've taken me as a professional right now. So it's been cool to see it where it begun and like where things are at now. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the early work, did I notice, was that the lighting studio or the B gallery?
Yes, it was. It was the B gallery, and it's very cool to like, it was just so much fun to dive into the archives and see like the things that I was exploring then and was interested in then, like still hold true now, you know? It was very special.
Just because Ari's not in the art department frequently, the B gallery is just Western's gallery, like for students, so it's just in there. So yeah, it's kind of ratty.
Yeah, you should check it out sometime. Well, there's also the VU gallery? No, the VU gallery is still
I think so. In the
Viking Union.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff in the VU has been impacted by COVID. But as far as I know, like most of that stuff is just on hiatus. It's not like canceled.
Yeah.
So
Are people in campus now? Like, are people are like physically on campus again?
Yeah,
To
they're on
like really,
campus, and like it's sort of like masking is encouraged.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Anyways,
can understand.
I have like a page full of questions.
Oh, all right. Let it rip. Let it
Yeah,
rip. Go ahead.
but I don't want to step on anyone. So like Ari or Natasha, like if you have any questions, jump in. Um, I I had an early question just when you started talking about photographing your friends. Like
Yeah.
I know that I can be sort of like the annoying guy in the friend group that has the camera and is like slowing things down because I want to like orchestrate these shoots.
Yeah.
Was there ever like how did you navigate any sort of, or was it ever even necessary, like an exchange in value, like you
Mm.
like quote unquote got what you wanted, by
Yeah.
working with friends? I feel like when you work with professionals it's a little bit more straightforward. It's like here's some
Yeah. An
dollars, I give you
exchange of
time.
service. Yeah.
Yeah, did you, how did you navigate that?
I mean, I like one of like the best things you can do is like show like the back of the camera as you're going, be like, hey, this is what you look like as you go. Like it's such a simple thing to like get people involved. So it's not just like you're taking a photo and you're never like it, that like exchange, you know what I mean? Obviously like spending time with the person beforehand, but also like being really honest and earnest about like why you want to take the photograph. Like I'll be like, I know this may sound weird and you can totally say no, but I just really love the way the light is hitting your face and you have this beautiful like hair with, like I just like get vulnerable with them before like I set the tone of vulnerability with them. But I definitely, but that doesn't mean that like I don't also feel like the annoying person at the part. You know what I mean? Like I for sure, I think that is like an ongoing thing with photography, especially if you're photographing people, is like, how do I make sure to like give them something when I'm getting something from them? But I think like just being really vulnerable with the person. And when it comes to like, I'm kind of in, I don't have any images to show of it now at the moment, but I've been doing a lot of street casting here in Barcelona. So like I am working with a jewelry studio where we're doing like collections via people on the street. So it's like kind of this like weird in between of like more editorial commercial, but we're photographing these pieces of jewelry on people on the street. So it's kind of tapping into like the photojournalism and having to earn a person's trust in like 5 minutes. My Spanish is my second language. I definitely have an accent, like all these things. And so a lot of times, like when I want to get a person comfortable, is I am the first person to like take the pose. I'm like, no, let's try it like this, or just like reassuring them that like if you feel awkward, like I'm sure it looks great on camera, and at any point you can just dip out, like you can say no, and giving them like that sort of power because it's like at the end of the day, like they're doing me a favor. You know what I mean? So it's like I want to respect everyone's time, energy, feelings. Someone could say yes at the beginning and then be like, actually, I don't feel that cute. And I'll be like, okay, we'll toss those images. That's fine. That's all good, you know? So those sort of things have helped me navigate those feelings. Yeah.
That actually like perfectly takes me to my next question. At one
Oh,
point, you were referencing like your models or your subjects, and you called them my
yeah.
people. And I thought that was so
Did
awesome.
I?
You're like, I like
Oh
checking
my
in on my
God.
people.
How embarrassing. Oh
What do you
God.
mean?
Yeah.
No. Like I just thought that was beautiful. Like it felt. I mean, because
Oh,
like when I hear that term, my
yeah.
people, that's like family, or like
Yeah.
that's a super inclusive, a very loving term.
Yeah.
Um, how does that, like, that makes sense when it's friends? I'm like, yeah, these are my people.
Yeah. Right.
But the way you said it, it felt like you were talking about like this is every subject of mine is like my
Yeah.
people. So how do you build? You kind of explained that a little bit, but like how do you build
Yeah.
that? Maybe in a more professional sense. I still think
Yeah.
that's valuable. But yeah, how do you build
Yeah.
that in?
Yeah. I just really like I just try to be very understanding if I was in their shoes, like how they would feel if I was approaching them, be like, "Okay, I did call them my people, didn't I?" I'm like, I guess I just like I'm very, how do I say this without sounding like every other person? It's like I am very thoughtful of the people I take photos of. Like they are photographed for a reason. And I know in fashion, a lot of times models are just literally clothes hangers. better fashion photography, more contemporary fashion photography, meaningful fashion photography, strong fashion photography is not just that. But there's a reason why I chose this model in this outfit, because it makes sense to them. It's not like I'm putting someone where they feel uncomfortable with their body. Like the body is a huge, like it experiences everything. It takes everything on, you know what I mean? And so I just try to be really, really thoughtful of every detail. Hey, like, do you need a break? Do you need water? And also like I really form friendships with the people that I shoot, even if it's just like, we really connected on set, or like the music that's being played. Oh, you really like this artist? Oh yeah, I really like this artist too. Or asking them about their family, like things that have nothing to do with fashion. Like that is like, those things are like even more important than fashion stuff. Like things that have nothing to do with like the superficial or visual aspects are actually what's going to carry you through. And so I think it's just, again, I mentioned it once before, but like how I was raised culturally was really important, because my, like, my mom's Spanish Catholic, my dad's Muslim from Iran. They're both immigrants. And so I've seen like these multiple different like ways of dynamics working out and not working out. And so like people have been a huge working with people, and how people are treated is really important to me. I also worked customer service at a photo store for like 7-8 years. And let me tell you, that has helped me with every art director in New York. Oh my God. That is like, I can handle everybody. It's fine. So yeah, that starting with like dynamics and how you treat people is so important. It's so important. So that, yeah, being mindful of that.
If Ari or Natasha, if you had a question, jump in, because I will keep steamrolling. I've loved this. I have an artist in the hot seat, and I'm like just asking questions.
It's been so long. It's so nice to chat.
I think like in that same sentiment, you use the word hospitality, and like for me, hospitality vibrates somewhere between like, when someone comes into your home and like how you treat them, versus like you going to a spa and getting like the spa treatment. And so like I could just imagine you,
Yeah.
especially with the cultural background that you have, like two cultures that are like huge on welcoming people into their home. I just imagine how that completely serves you when you're dealing with models.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it also just like, I don't know, you don't also have to have wildly different cultural backgrounds to like, like culture is not just like, country or language or country of origin or anything. Culture is like what formulates you. It could be your interests, it could be the things you participate in because you're passionate about them. But all those things, like, yeah, like I think like bringing whatever makes you feel good, and bringing that to the people that you're working with is part of what can make you hospitable to a subject.
I love questions like this because I love it when things go bad.
Yes.
You said like you encourage your artists to like get weird is the phrase
Yes.
that you use, and like like encouraging play. I love that idea.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious, like it's sort of like a two-part question. One is like, how do you encourage that, especially like maybe with someone that you don't know as well, like you're building a rapport in that moment. Like, how do you encourage that kind of like playful exploration or like that get weird process? And then the second part of my question is,
I mean,
has it ever gone bad on you? Have you ever been like, no, too weird, put the gun down or whatever? I don't know. Yeah, I'm just curious if you have any like horror stories to share.
Um, well, I don't know if I have a horror story. Sometimes it's like you get someone so comfortable that like you no longer worried about their time, like they don't worry about your time. Like you're like, okay, well, they just keep talking and talking, and they want to like meet your family, and you're like, we can do this. Yeah, we can do that. I experienced that a lot when I was like photographing people in Spain, but that's also what I loved about it. I was like, oh, you remind me of my own family. um Getting rejected, that's fine. I'll say thank you, no worries, like taking that, fine. But a lot of times getting people to be weird, a lot of times I'm thinking of like movement, and so I will be the one to demonstrate the movement. I also will shout obscenities like, so, like when I'm really in the zone, I'll just say like, "You look fierce," and it's like, God, what, like saying you look fierce. Like I start just saying things that are so like America's Next Top Model, like 2004, and it's just like that's not what I meant, but just like I'll just yeah, and I think like that makes people laugh. Like I just think humor is a big thing. I think humor is a big thing. I really relate to people through being a fool myself. So I think people feel comfortable to get weird with me. And then again, always being honest. Like if your source of inspiration is like, or your reference is like something weird, just like share it and explain why. Like help people connect the dots from A to Z, you know? Like I think like that will get you to many different places, experiences, images, and all that. I wish I was better at being like that way, like being more vulnerable with like photojournalism. I do miss photojournalism a lot. And there are times where I want to just like take photos of people or ask to take a photo. And sometimes I just read the energy or feel like that annoying guy at the party again. You know, I'm like, I don't want to, you know, that is something that's still in practice. Like I don't have it nailed down. In controlled environments, for the most part, I do. But like there are times where I wish I could just, I see something, I wish I could snap it. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone? We just have a couple minutes left. I'm like hanging on to every scrap of time.
Yes. Yes.
Natasha, Ari, like jump in.
Help.
This isn't an art question, but like I was wondering what your astrological sign is.
You want to guess? I feel like you might know.
I feel like you're a water sign, but I also could see you being an air sign. But I'm
Neither.
probably wrong.
No,
Neither?
but look, I'm a Taurus.
Ah,
I'm a Taurus
okay,
sun,
that makes sense.
Libra rising,
Okay.
something. I think I'm no, Aries moon, Aries, Venus and Aries.
I
I don't know, I
just
gotta look it up.
like a lot of what you were talking about and throughout this talk I just resonated with a lot. So I was like, oh, it's probably just a sign that works
Yes.
with me. So I was
Yes,
that's
of
kind of what I
course.
was thinking. But
Yes.
I guess a question about your photography is like when you make something that is digital, not digital, what
Mhm.
is your like favorite way to do that you're just like, ooh, this is super fun every single time you
Oh,
do it? And
I'll tell you.
yeah,
I'll tell you.
please.
I got it. I'll tell you. I love to place objects on images. I love it. I have like a whole like I don't have it. It's like over in the other room, but I have like a whole like storage box. I collect so much stuff. I have a whole storage
Yeah,
box
that's
of
the other thing.
miniatures.
I was
Yes.
wondering how you kept this all together.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah. For a while it wasn't like I had like hair in Ziploc bags. I'm like, I look like a serial killer. Like this is no way. I have, yeah, you know, I have just plenty of Ziploc bags of like lotto tickets. You know, I would collect wax. I have a lot of like colored candles and I'll collect the wax and I just like organize them by colors. And yeah, I definitely organizing those materials helps to like create really fun stuff. But I love, yeah, I also outside of photography, I love miniatures, miniature train sets, like miniature worlds, like all that. So like I love being able to like play with proportion. So I would say like the thing that's been like the most fun is like I will edit an image to the way I like the colors, okay, like a basic edit, print it out like cheap photocopy, and then I'll start playing. I'll make several copies so I can play with different iterations and just like putting on a playlist, being caffeinated, playing with like objects on like that is like I love that. Sometimes I'll even do it on the iPad and like rephotographing it. It's just fun to play with proportion. That and also just like I love photo editing. So just one image next to another, sequencing. That's the sweet spot for me too. I really like that. So yeah, definitely explore.
I had like a simple tie-in question, but that exact kind of train of thought. Like
Yeah.
when you make prints, I'm such like a dumb purist. I'm like, it has to be like a high tech, you know, inkjet,
I know,
whatever.
yeah.
So like you just mentioned like photocopy paper, like the output device, does it
Yes.
vary much? You always there, or like, and then it must inform the process.
Yes. So this is where like what I was saying, color being super important is like my saving grace in everything. Because I literally like my film camera is like not even like great. Like a lot of times shit comes out, things come out blurry and I wish like I'm saving up for like a nicer camera. Like I would really like I love 35 millimeter and I would love to like have something that's like okay, more reliable. Like after a while something's an aesthetic and you're like okay, but you want something that also, you know. And so all that is to say like I work with what I have and so sometimes I can see how an image I'll print it out at the local copy machine. It could be like it's like one step above like a color copy. It's like the thing that's like in between a photo print and a color copy. I'll like go the extra mile and like pay the extra 50 cents. But the reason why I don't invest so much in that part of the process is because what I do, I have like a whole like in like what like it's kind of like I edit the image, I print the image on like a medium quality photo paper, whatever, photocopy. And then I place it on a table and this is all natural light. And then I'll like play with like, putting the banana peel or whatever. When I got it in the placement that I want, I take my digital camera, which is high end. So now you're like kind of scanning it back in higher. It's like weird. And I photograph that. Obviously that messes with the color again. So I'm re-editing the color on that. And then what I'm doing is sometimes where I feel like the quality is lost of a part of an image, I mask in the original image. So it's like a lot of like compressing and scanning and it's like a lot of different things. So for me, the most important part is just like, let's get the composition right. And then like, I know that I can like bring it in or just color treat it in a way that it makes it look like it was part, like it makes sense, even if it's like sardines on legs, like, oh no, but the colors of everything make sense. So the elements you place on the photo, their tones have to be the same if you want them to be. If you don't want it to look like copy and paste, like you want it to be part of the same world. So that's why color is super, super important in that way. But yeah, I also love the purism though. I really, really like respect it and like miss doing that part of it too.
Your process just sounds so fun. Like I like the like many layers. You know how you said like I caffeinate myself, I put on a playlist. Like that's perfect. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Yes. I could teach a whole class on that process alone. Yeah.
That would be so cool. Yeah, like I have kept you for every second of time that we agreed on. So thank you so much.
Please. It's been so nice. Like feel free. I guess Dana, I'll send you like my email, but if any of your students, anybody has like any follow-up questions, like I'm happy to Zoom hang again.
Whoa.
Even in different time zones. Yes,
that's amazing.
Of course. I love to talk about this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and like in our class website, we have a link to your website. So yeah, like they have access to your work. So yeah.
Yay! And I want to see your guys' work too.
Oh, sick! Yeah.
Yes, please. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carmen.
Really
nice. Zoom clap.
Thank
I don't know why I'm clapping for myself.
You should. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, thank you so much. These were all such thoughtful questions. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Also, for Ari doesn't know this, but the photo teacher at Western, his name is Garth, and I study under Garth, and Carmen study under Garth, and so Garth told me to tell you to say hi.
Oh, God, yes! I got a hi from Garth. That is, please just give him one of these.
Nice. I will. I'll just be like.
Carmen says
this. That's awesome.
Oh, yay.
Cool. Well, Ari, awesome to see you.
Yeah.
Natasha, super, super awesome to see you. It's so cool. And yeah, Carmen, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for the insight.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. We can do this whenever you want. Seriously.
Nice. Well, then I will be arranging that.
Yes, please. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
night,
week.
Carmen. See ya.
Bye.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too. A ver, español.
I'm trying to think of something. Think of something.
Nosotros podemos hablar completamente en español.
Finalmente.
Sí.
Wow.
Aquí estamos.
Ohio Ojalá que tenga un buen noche.
Ah, nice.
Ay,
So
muy
good.
bien, qué bien, qué bien. Muchas gracias. Que tengáis una
Nice.
buena semana. Dude, my Spanish, I've been living in Spain. I feel like my Spanish has gotten worse. And that's because I just
Oh.
don't speak it at home. I don't
you
live
have
with my
that-
mom.
You have that beautiful like Spanish with like the th sound
You
built
should-
in. It's gorgeous.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, my Spanish has gotten worse since I left my mom's house. But anyways, thank you so much. And we'll do this again whenever.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Ciao.
See you, Natasha.
Bye.
See you, Carmen.
Bye. Bye.